Hi guys, so today I'm going to be doing a book review video. My hair is a real mess today and I was outside, so that's why I look red and hot and everything. So I have 7 books for you guys and most of these books were good. This is Oprah's book club book. It's called Midwives and it's by Chris Bo Bohangian. I don't know how to say his last name or her last name. I don't know. This is what it looks like. And it's about this midwife who is accused of doing something that is out of her realm of expertise, kind of, and it goes to trial. And it's a really good book. Like the last book I read that was Oprah's Book Club was like The Life and Times of Cholera, and that book was not good. I even did a book review video on it. And this one was really good. I really liked it. There was a lot, but there, like, some of the stuff in the book, it was kind of like it didn't really have any relevance to the storyline. Like the she has a daughter, the woman has a daughter, and she's telling her mom's story. And she's talking about every once in a while she'll backtrack, she'll flip through the book telling about how her mom might have been seducing or the lawyer was seducing her, and it didn't have any relevance to the storyline because nothing really happened from that. And there was one thing in the book that I really didn't get where she actually did something to help her mother. And the thing she did to help her mother, I was like, okay, like, but when the judge wanted this evidence, why didn't he take any notice to the fact that this thing was missing? That type of thing. But it was a good book, and you really feel like when you read the book that like what she did, you're kind of like, would you do that same thing if you were in her position? And at the end of the book there's like a surprise twist at the end that deals with something that she could have said that helped her case either in a good way or a bad way. And it was just a really good book. Now this book is like a history book. It doesn't have a cover on it. Did I? Oh no, I did show you what that book looked like. This is The Presidents Under Fire, Commanders in Chief in Victory and Defeat. It's by James R. Arnold. This is what it looks like, and I don't know what happened to the book cover. It was like that when I got it, or dust jacket, whatever you want to call it. And there's a couple parts in the book. It doesn't go through. It talks about presidents that were in wars, and it talks about George Washington. But in the beginning, it talks about obviously before he was president, he was in the Revolutionary War, so they talked about that, and then they talked about a war that happened while he was a president that dealt with the Indians or Native Americans. And the second part was about the Civil War. Now, the Civil War, oh no, it wasn't the Civil War, it was the Mexican American War, the war with James K. Polk. And the third part was about the Civil War, and that one was about it had a point of view where I didn't understand why it talked about it because it didn't deal with Abraham Lincoln. It dealt with Jefferson Davis, who was like the president of the Confederate forces. So it was kind of weird because it was like, well, he's not really like technically he wasn't the president because Abraham Lincoln kind of was. But it was a different kind of feel, you know what I mean? Like basically they blamed him for what happened and why they didn't win and stuff like that. And it goes into why he had enough say because he was like a senator or something before the Civil War broke out. And they were saying that they were asking, well, why could he control that, but then he couldn't control the Southern government type of thing. And then the last book, well, there's another part. There's a part where it talks about the different wars that came after it. So there's like a little thing of World War One, a little clip of World War Two, and then the Korean War, and then it goes into the last war they talk about, which is the Vietnam War, which is a war that we never really won, and obviously a lot of people didn't like it. And it that's where it ends. And so basically, it's more like if you really, really like history, it's a book for that. I mean, I felt it was kind of boring, especially because like the words on the pages are really like it's really a long book. So it's like if it says, oh, this chapter was only like 10 pages, you're like, oh, 10 pages, that's nothing. And then here it takes you like an hour to read 10 pages. And some of the stuff in the book wasn't really like they just kept saying the same thing basically in the book. Like in Washington's part talked about how Congress wasn't giving him enough stuff, and then he had to deal with that, and that's basically a lot of what they talk about in that section. And then there was about Polk and his generals weren't really communicating and stuff like that. It was just a really, really long book. There's like a little halfway through the book. There's like some pictures from the different wars and stuff. Nothing really graphic, if that's like a thing for you guys. But yeah, it was an okay book. I mean, I like history, but I think it was like when I like to read history books, I like to do it where like it's kind of like a flow. Like when I read biographies or autobiographies, I like when it's like it flows. Like you can just read it. And this was kind of like it kind of flowed and then it stopped and then it flowed again, that type of thing. I don't know how else to describe it. This book was an okay book too. This is called The Little Paris Bookshop. It's by Nina George. This is what it looks like, and it's about this man who, it's been a long time since I read this book. It's about this French man who loves books, and here he was having this affair with this woman. She was married, and I don't know what she left or something. I don't really remember the whole concept, but she left him for no reason. And here he finds this letter that she wrote to him like years ago or something like that. And here he decides, you know what, I'm going to go out and do the thing I love best. So he gets this little boat full of these books, and this one book he wants to find the author to. And this man who is an author decides to come with him, and they travel around the different European cities to find out what really happened to this woman he loved. And then in between some of the chapters is actually a journal that the woman he loved kept, detailing like what it was like, how her parents wanted her to marry this man, and then she married him instead of the guy she liked, and then she got sick and all this stuff. And it was like a tragic type of love story, kind of, where you're like, the character was just too late to save his love, type of thing, whether she wanted him to save her or not, whatever. And at the end he actually finds her widower, her husband, and he talks about, like, oh, like, I didn't really care if she liked you, like, stuff like that. I don't know. It was like a thing, like, like rehashing old wounds and like talking it out, that type of thing. So this book is a little book. It's only got 100 and I think it was like 50 pages. I don't know. Let me see. It's 123 pages. And goes along with the Cat Who books. That's like a series that I like to read about this man who lives in a small town with these two cats, and they solve mysteries together. And it's kind of like, it doesn't go in any order. Like, you could read this whenever you wanted in the set. And this is called The Private Life of the Cat Who, and it's Tales of Coco and Yum Yum. That's the cat's names. From the Journal of James Mackintosh Quilleran. I don't know, I never know how to say his last name. They always call him just Quill. And it's by Lilian Jackson Braun. This is what it looks like. And it's about, like I said, it's this man's diaries. And it talks about just like some different things, like, oh, this is how I first got the first cat. This is how I got the second cat. And this is like their mischievousness that they cause in my life, that type of thing. And the mischievousness actually is how he solves the mysteries. And I liked it. It was a nice little book. Like I said, like, there's nothing in the book that like preludes to anything else in like the stories that she writes. So you can read that like whenever you feel like it in the set. This is another book, and this one is a book that maybe not everybody would like to read either, like the history book I just showed you. This is an imponderables book, and it's about these questions that maybe you thought of asking, but you never really knew the answer to, those type of questions. This is called Why Do Clocks Run Clockwise? It's by David Feldman. There's a couple different books to this. I did read one. It was like, why can't cats swim? I think there was another one, but I don't know. But this book is old. This book is from the 80s, so there are questions in this book that might not pertain to stuff now. but this is what it looks like. And there was like all these different questions in the book, and sometimes when I read it, I'm like, oh yeah, like I always wondered that type of question. Like, how did Xmas come to stand for Christmas? Let's see. I'm trying to see why do two by fours don't match 2 inches by 4 inches? I don't know. There's like all these different questions in this book. That was just like a couple of them that were in the book, and it didn't take me that long to read. And then in the back of the book, there's these questions that he couldn't answer because he could not find the answer to. Like there was one in the book towards the end of the book where it was about M&Ms, and it was like, how do the people get the M on the M&Ms, and how come in a bag of classic M&Ms there's more brown than any other color? And then it said about how like in the peanut ones there's more green than there are any other color. And I don't know, I mean, obviously this book, like I said, this book was written in the 80s, so I don't know if it's different now, I don't know. But it's just like questions that, like, even when I read it, I'm like, oh yeah, like I always wondered about that, but I never knew the answer to it or something like that. I mean, now like you have Google could answer that for you, but it was a nice book. I really liked it. This one is a book that I got a long time ago from a book sale, and I got one of these books, and I remember when I did the book haul video, I said I wanted to get a book that a genre that I never really delved deep into, and that was like the sci-fi-ish type of category. And I'm talking about like true sci-fi, not like, I know I read like maybe some books like you would say, well, some of the books you read are sci-fi, but I'm talking about like true sci-fi fantasy stuff, like not stuff that like they just did sort like movies on, like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, that type of stuff. I'm talking about like classic sci-fi type of books. Now this book was kind of good. And this book is, I don't even know if this book is like, I know it's in a series, but I don't know what number it is. I just read it. And this is Question Quest. It's by Piers Anthony. It's the new Xanath novel. This is what it looks like. And it's about this woman who she wants to go back into her past and fix these things, but the person that is like the head of the world doesn't know how to read this certain language in this book to help her figure out how to get to where she has to go. So she ends up going to this place, it's Hell's Waiting Room, to visit this man who knew all these languages. And he was saying about how like if he leaves the room, then the demon will come. It's like a weird thing where like you're in this waiting room, and he like if he comes when you're not there, you miss your number type of thing, where you can ask him to do something for you. And she's like, well, however long you've been here, she's like, oh, a long time. And here she ends up writing his biography. So it's basically, the whole book is mostly about his life and how he became who he was and stuff like that. He was, I still forget what, it was like, I forget what they called him. It was like the king of information or something like that. I know it was like information. And what he wanted to do was he wanted to get his wives back. And yes, he had wives. And it's just, you have to read the book to understand why he has 2 wives. And if, at the end, the demon does come, and he has to decide what to do about the situation. And then she ends up she tries to end up figuring out what she wants to do in her situation, that type of thing. So this is a book where this series is a series that I really wanted to read. And it's the Twisted Tales by Disney. And it's just about like, they have like, this is one of the ones, I think there's like 9 of these books. Excuse me. And this is called What If Wendy First Traveled to Neverland with Captain Hook. It's called Straight On Till Morning. It's by Liz Braswell. And there's another woman who does these books too. I think it's just Liz and this other woman. And this is what it looks like. And this is a couple years after they met Peter Pan. And I don't think I don't know in this book if she went to Neverland with Peter Pan or not. But anyway, she has his shadow. And she thought that, oh, eventually he'll come back to take it, and then she could go to Neverland, all this stuff. and he never comes back, and she's 16. And her parents find out she's writing these stories about Neverland, and she's just like not in her own head. She's like thinking about Neverland all the time and blah blah blah. So they wanted to let her become a governess. That's kind of like a teacher slash nanny type of thing in Ireland to this man's children, and she didn't want to. So here she decides she's going to give Peter Pan's shadow to Peter Pan so she can end up in Neverland. And here she finds out that, like all magic comes with a price type of thing. So she ends up figuring out that he is going to use the shadow to find Peter Pan, and then he's going to destroy Neverland, Captain Hook. So she's going on this journey with Tinkerbell where she's trying to find where Peter Pan is, so obviously they can defeat Captain Hook and stuff like that. And I really like this book. I mean, I never really got into I wouldn't say Peter Pan was like my favorite Disney movie. I think I've only seen the Disney Peter Pan maybe like a couple times, like not maybe like I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times. And I seen like the sequel to it, like Return to Neverland, where it's Wendy's daughter goes, like a couple times too. But I don't think I ever seen all of Peter Pan before. I don't think so. I mean, it seemed like a live action one that they did on like TV one time, but obviously that's going to be different than the Disney one. But it's a good book. I would highly recommend reading these books, the Twisted Tales ones. Now, there's not a order you have to read them, and you can read them as you get them. And that's all I have for this book review video. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.